Only 12.
Only 12 right now. Listen.
Gotta have some.
No, I wanted them all, but Randy's like, I don't know if people are going to get them. I'm like, oh, they'll get them. They'll get them. Well, once they see it and understand it,
we want more already.
Get it.
We want more colors already.
Of course, yeah. Same with me. It's like, you know, I look for where's aged mahogany and where's frayed burlap.
Right.
Yeah. But the stains, I mean, this is what makes it so cool. So when you stamp with this, again, it's going to stamp different than if you stamp with your ink pad. If you stamp with your distress pad, you're going to get that crisp, deep saturation of ink. But when you stamp with the stains, you get that instant wash of color on there. But it's great, especially for big background stamps, that you want that kind of cool watercolor. And again, it's reactive. So even there, after it's stamped and it's dry, if I wanted to go in and just kind of, you know, get it to bleed out a little bit more, or even go in and lighten it in areas, lift it off, you can, because it's still distress. So it's like you get the same intensity that you would from a pad, but now it's in a liquid form. Whereas you, yeah, it's just faster for larger areas. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it just creates, I think, just a really interesting way to distress.
Tim, if you stamped first in distress ink and then rubbed your distress stain over it, did it smooth the distress ink?
Yes, it would react with the ink that's down.
Over archival?
You could do it over archival. You could do it over embossing. Yeah, you could do it over StazOn. It's still going to work as distress would. Like, for example, if you stamped in white dabber first, you could stain over it and it would resist. So exactly the same properties that you're used to with this, it's just now in a fluid form. And you can still go back in and blend, and that's another great thing, is the blendability. You can go in with your distress, and it's still going to blend in with the stain because it's the same property. So you're not going to get the harsh lines again like you would when you're blending with, you know, trying to introduce Adirondack or something like that. So to me that just, yeah, it's nice. That was just perfect for a mist. Just showing how it doesn't warp paper. Yeah, heirloom gold. But see, by spraying it over scrapbook paper, it doesn't ripple it because it's a couple of sprays and you're done. So this time we're going to go over with archival because we want this to really pop.
Stamped underneath it?
Stamped underneath with distress stain. This just gives it archival, so we can start creating that opaque.
The words underneath are stamped with
stain.
And then when you went over it with the stain on top, it didn't do that?
It bled it out a little bit. No, it won't. It doesn't cause it to wet because it's porous. This is going to absorb into the surface, so it's going to bond better. Yeah. So like you can't.
Distress ink because that stays on top.
Right, and you can't emboss with this stuff like you can with that, because that stays on the surface and this soaks in because it's more fluid. So you don't have that time of, oh, let's wait for it to sit there. It's like, and on trimming, oh my gosh, that's what I'll do next. It's ridiculous. So here I'll just do a piece here, and you could even do a piece at the bottom if you want. Alright, so if I want to go in and just stain this ribbon, for example, I'm just going to go in with the stain and just, yeah. If I want to add a little bit of green to it, you can throw that right on. If you want to add a little bit of water to lift some of the color, you can do that.
That lightens it a little?
Yeah, that's going to create like this mottled look when it dries. So now I'll just dry it. And I can just dry this with the heat tool. So the crinkle ribbon, you can either let it dry and it'll dry flat, or you can just crinkle it up. And the stains don't come off on your hands. Don't mind my fingers, but they don't come off on your hands. It's kind of silkish. Silkish. Yeah. A lot of people said it was like seam binding, but then I learned early on it's not. It's
a lot more fun.
if you cook seam binding, it's a little powder.
It's more delicate. It is.
I think seam binding was it rayon? Is that why it burns?
No.
Well, it burns, yeah. It's kind of crabby.
Could you burn this if you work hard enough? It won't ever burn.
No, I think if you lit it on fire, it would. You know what I mean?
No.
What I mean with the heat tool?
Short of it.
Yeah, with the heat tool.
Yeah, not too good.
Yeah. As soon as I say no, it's like, oh yeah. So here I'm just going to pull that in the blending tool, just put a little brown on there. So yeah, so now I've got this really great ribbon where my colors are going to coordinate. You know, I just threw in a little bit of green just because I had some of that in it. It's cool. So I'll also ink these and just show you some great things about this. If you go in and I'll use this as just a demo piece. This one, for example, this was fired brick. Started out as fired brick, and if you ink the trimming dry, it'll take the most concentrated version of that color. So fired brick, I mean, it took it really dark. But then I wet these first and just went over it with the stains, and then it creates that really
So
cool.
it spreads out through the water.
Totally. So I'm going to spray it first because then we're going to create a much cooler. You're hanging out with her?
Who's corrupting who?
That's right. Yeah, that's the question right there. So here I'm just going to go, and we'll start with some Dusty Concord, throw in a little bit of broken.
Hello? Hello? I think it was the wrong number.
You can make this as intense as you want. I just want this to be